Welcome to this week's edition of the Old Paratrooper Podcast. But before we get started, I want to tell you about our new sponsors, Veterans for Veterans. If you served after 1987 and your hearing's taken a knock from your time in the forces, these are the people to speak to. They've helped thousands of veterans like us claim compensation for tinnitus and hearing loss. They're ex-military themselves, so they genuinely get it.
It's free to check if you qualify, and the claims are no win, no fee. To get started, click the link in this video or visit veteransforveterans.co.uk.
Well, good morning. Hope everyone's all right. Just want to give a quick shout out and a thank you to Elliot Brown Watches for sending me this lovely timepiece. I'll have the link in the description box at the end, so please take a look at that and go check them out. They do some awesome bits of kit. But today, we're having a bit of a revisit. Obviously a sucker for punishment. He's decided to come back on for a second time, and that is SAS legend Mick Hawkes. Hello, Mick. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for the invite, Chris. A bit manic this morning, getting a bit of a flu jab and then racing back. Weather's not brilliant up here in Herefordshire, but yeah, nice to be back on, mate.
No, always. I've always got time for you, Mick. You came on early doors on the podcast before it started to kind of grow, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I've seen you've been doing the rounds on the podcast, and as always, I watch the stuff. I think you've just been on recently with Craig Harrison on the Maverick Sniper School one.
Yeah, that was a bit bizarre because I go everywhere with flip-flops on. You know, that's my go-to pair of shoes, like, you know. And we went down to Craig's down in just outside Portsmouth, I suppose. And there's me rocking up with a T-shirt and flip-flops. And he said, actually, it's in the woods. And so luckily in the car, I had all my trainers and a nice floppy jacket to put on. But it was different. And because Craig's totally different as well, it was a good podcast, mate.
Yeah, he's got a good setup there. I think we're going to, in talks, probably get him back on to talk about it in the future, and I might head down there, hopefully, and do a bit of speaking with him as well. So, yeah, no, exciting stuff, buddy. Well, like I said to you off air, we've had you on before, but as a reminder for everyone, because, again, your career was epic, as are a lot of the guys that have served in the units that you've served. So, yeah, if we just give the viewers at home that might not have seen the first podcast a bit of a kind of, not a brush over, because I don't want to be blasé with it, but just a kind of rough account of your career from start to finish. And then what we'll talk about is what you've been up to and the good stuff you've been doing recently, buddy, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit of a strange career, I suppose, because I had no intention of joining the military. My father was in the army, but he was a crap at raw signals, based in Germany. So all the people that I saw in the military were all quite large, alcoholically rotund, because some of the units over in Germany had been out there quite a long time. So there was no inspiration for me to join the military. Like, you know, I didn't want to be like them.
Yeah.
So I really got into football. A really good football player at the time, in my own eyes. Came back. My mum and dad divorced when we were in Germany. I came back when I was 15 and a half to Lincolnshire. I got a trial with Lincoln City to become a professional footballer, I suppose, with Lincoln. Never got picked. Played left back in the changing room, as far as they were concerned. never got picked, and it was that instant, you know, 15 and a half, 16. What am I going to do now? And in Lincolnshire, it was you're either a farmer, a mechanic, or a bricklayer, or you join the RAF, because obviously a lot of RAF bases. So I went up to Grimsby, to the Army Recruiting Centre, and there was a big burly paratrooper, sergeant, sat in there recruiting. He looked the part, you know what I mean? And that inspired me. I'm just literally talking to another soldier, apart from my father, and he inspired me. So at the 16 years of age, I joined Junior Parachute Regiment, went down to Aldershot, Browning Barracks, Aldershot, did a year as a juniors, and I was in the gymnastic display team. Not that I'm a gymnast, but you know, it was just touring the country, great fun. Really going to all these different places. Bizarrely, I've never finished a cross country run in my life when I was a school kid, because I was always playing football, you know, and if it didn't revolve around football, I wasn't interested. Went down to junior para. They had a 10-mile cross country run. I came second. So I have no idea where that came from. Came second, ended up in the cross-country team, bizarrely. Funny story. So the junior parachute regiment cross-country team came second in the league table of all these different units. Winning team, the Army Catering Corps.
No way.
Who were actually based not that far from Browning Barracks, as it happened. So anyway, we was on the way back from, we had the big sort of award ceremony, junior parachute second. We were on these little fancy trophies, I suppose, all cock a hoop. It's the first time I've ever won a proper trophy, apart from football. And as we arrived back at Browning Barracks, the RSM was there at Browning Barracks, and he brought on the bus and metal. Can you remember the old dustbins that the prisoners used to ball up, nice and shiny? Got on the bus and he said, listen, guys, if you think coming second to the Army Catering Corps is something to be proud of, you obviously don't know the parachute regiment. As you walk past, put all your trophies in this bin.
No way.
So, yeah, off we did, through it. Unfortunately, went into recruit company. P company, week 12, week 14, week 15-ish. We went for a 10-mile run on Hankley Common. For some reason, the DS, the instructors, wanted us to do a para roll off a tank bird down in Hankley Common. It's about an 8-9 foot drop, something like that. Everyone jumped off. When it was my turn, I jumped off, and I could hear the crack, but I snapped my ankle pretty badly. So carried back to Browning Barracks, no ambulance, whatever, but so got carried back by the boys, taken straight up to Cambridge Military Hospital. They manipulated the ankle back into the place. Thankfully, I was out of it. And then 3 weeks later, they re-x-rayed it and said, listen, it's not fitted properly. So we're gonna pin it. So they pinned the ankle. Then took me about another 9 months, I suppose, to get my fitness back up to speed. I then got called in by the training major, and there was a medical doctor there as well, came in, and they said, listen, unfortunately, you can't parachute. And I think they were just being a bit overzealous. Young lad snapped his ankle, probably a bit overzealous. Here's your options, and it was go and join a crap-out unit, or so. Anyway, I left the army because the thought of transferring over to a crap-out unit just didn't appeal to me. 3 months later, realised that was a huge mistake. Back to Grimsby Recruiting Centre. The para-edge guy had gone by then. And there was a lad in there, and he said, listen, we've got your report here from Recruit Company Parachute Regiment. Obviously a fit lad. Have you thought about, because it's got no parachuting on you, have you thought about being a commando? And I was like that. Well, the only commando I know of is Royal Marines. He said, no, the Army has actually got 2 commando units, 5-9 Commando Royal Engineers, or 2-9 Commando Royal Artillery. So that was it. I went to 2-9. Purely because my father was attached to all these artillery units. I'll join 2-9. So off I went down there, did the commando course. Initially, so I did the first commando course. The beat up, which is actually a lot harder than the actual commando course, to be honest. But everybody that was going to pass that was going to go to 7-9 Battery, who were heading out to Belize. And I didn't want that. 7 Battery, who I wanted to go to, which were based in Arbroath, were due to do a Northern Ireland tour. And that's where I wanted to go, So I played on the ankle, as you do, sort of limped out. So they called us in and said, listen, we know what you're trying to do, so bog off. But, we'll allow you to stay here. Obviously, you've got to do the whole beat up again. And I said, yeah, no hassle with that. So I had to wait 3 weeks, did the beat up again, blah, blah, blah. Went down. Commander course, very easy. I found the commander course very easy compared to P Company, purely because I was now, a year and a bit older, a bit bigger, and away we went. Ended up in 7 Battery, where I wanted to go, which is really the black sheep organisation. Anyone that bit dodgy, send them up to Arbroath, Scotland. Out of sight, out of mind, and up you go. But actually, the battery up there produced quite a few lads who actually went on SAS selection, if that makes sense. So it was great. So that was really the start of my military career, being based up in Arbroath from about 1980 until I went on selection in.
Yeah. And then you obviously had a long career in the SAS, which we've talked about before, obviously on the previous podcast. But I don't think we covered it, and I've heard you mention it before. There's a story with Billy Billingham where you were kind of in Bosnia. I'm sure we didn't touch on it, and I've watched it on other podcasts, and I'd like to hear it firsthand off you what the story was about. And you got taken hostage, is that right?
Yeah, so what happened was, I was in Northern Ireland doing the undercover stuff with 14 Int. I wasn't actually a 14 Int person. It's just that 4 SAS guys always go on every course because it's actually a really good skill to have. So I did a 2-year stint really. So 6-month course, 18-month over in Northern Ireland. And then as I got back into B Squadron back there, they were sort of doing the build-up really to Bosnia. So all the lads were actually away doing courses, and Billy was actually on a Serbo-Croat course, trying to learn a bit of the language. Only 6 weeks, so it was really the basics. And I was doing catch up really. So the boys deployed, and I was about 2 weeks behind because I was away doing another course. So they deployed. I then came out and then deployed, and we ended up in a place called Bihać, which is the northwest of the country. Little enclave run by the Muslims, by 5 Corps, General Dadakovic. Quite a hardcore organisation, really, because they'd held out. They'd really held their own, really, against Serbian opposition. But the Serbs just couldn't take this enclave. So that's where our 4-man team went. Up to Bihać. So we took over from A Squadron. We took over and then cracked on. Just before, and we were out there really when the period was 3 months with the UN, and then overnight it was NATO. So just before, probably about a week before it became NATO, we had to set up a meeting with the Serbian and Muslim general. And it wasn't a biggie, it wasn't a major. And all it was all about troop movements of where they were actually going to, on a map, say where their position, and they had to agree it, basically. So we set the meeting up. So me and Billy, the day before, had gone down there to do the recce. And the meeting was going to be in no man's land between the Muslim front line and the Serbian front line. Right in the middle. So we were going to use 2 LI, the second light infantry. They were part of the UN, and they were in warrior vehicles. And we had one of their vehicles was going to be protecting the site. We're all happy about it. Me and Billy then went down, had a quick chat with the Serb front line, had a quick coffee, Slivovic, and then came back and we said, listen, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow. We'll be down. We'll set the meeting up. We'll come down. And I pride myself on situational awareness. Doing some of the stuff that we've done, your situational awareness is going to be quite high. What we forgot, and I take the blame for this, is we forgot the general factor. So when they brought the general forward, their frontline troops completely changed. It was a special forces type organisation had come forward. So when we'd set the meeting up with me and Billy, the other 2 lads in the patrol stayed with the UN people doing the meeting. And me and Billy decided to walk down, have a quick chat with the Serb front line again, as we did the day before. But as we were approaching, we realised that something seemed a bit strange here. It didn't quite seem right. But we continued, why wouldn't you? Unfortunately, we don't look like UN. We don't wear the berets. We don't wear the helmet. Certainly don't wear body armour. Anything to do with UN, we just bin it. And the reason being, we've got a job to do. And if you're part of the UN, the restrictions are too high. You really don't get the job done. So we went the other way. Yeah, bin all that crap. And we'll just balls it out, basically. And then we got to the front line. and these troops came out, totally different to the ones we met the day before. And we must have spooked them because, our hair was quite long. We looked scruffy. Normal cams on, British cam had pistols, didn't have longs with us, just had our pistols and 3 or 4 spare magazines or whatever, map, compass, notebooks, all that, all the basics. All very sterile, nothing on there at all to give away who we were. But we had a UN ID card. So they took us prisoner. And to be honest, you're not going to win a firefight with 2 pistols against 8 or 9 Serbs holding their version of an AK-47, if that makes sense, their variant. So we were banked the rights. No issues with that. We then got dragged over into, not dragged, but told to follow this guy. And they took us to a little farm building, which was on a main road. A quick tactical, as normal, quick tactical questioning, I suppose. They weren't happy with what we were saying, so they literally disarmed us. They then put us in a vehicle and then drove us the drive back to a place called Prijedor. So it was near an area called Sanski Mosque, which is where the meeting was, and they then decided to take us way behind the Serbian lines to a place called Prijedor. Now, Prijedor, the camp that they took us to, was notorious for starving and killing Muslims. It was on all the TV news and that lot. So it was a pretty grim place to get taken to. But it was a 45-minute drive. And the bizarre thing about it is, me and Billy were sat on the back seat, and we were sort of whispering away. And bear in mind that we're now seeing all the Serbian troop movement, so we're getting quite a lot of intel from this sort of whatever we're doing, And then what happened was about halfway up there, me and Billy chatting, the guy in the front seat, who was a captain, said something in Serb to the passenger, and he got up on his knees and then pointed his weapon at me and Billy. But he then cocked it, and me and Billy sort of looked at each other. I don't know if it's, I don't know, maybe a bit of nerd, but we started laughing because our first thought went, hold on, you're on the front line, how come you haven't got a round in the chamber? And, oh, by the way, we could have jumped him. If I'd known that, we could have flipping jumped on him. So it was a bit of a nervous sort of laughter, but also typical military humour. What crappy drills that was by these two. He wasn't happy, obviously, because we'd laughed at him. He then sat back down. 45 minutes later, we got to the camp or whatever. Got thrown into quite a long corridor. Pretty grim looking place. And I was the one that got dragged in first for interrogation. Now, I was senior to Billy, although Billy had been out there a bit longer than me. But Billy had sort of joined the regiment about maybe a couple of years before, 3 years maybe. But I'd been away in Northern Ireland, so I hadn't really worked with Billy apart from the very first anti-terrorist team we did back in Hereford, So I got dragged in first, and I just, Northern Ireland training kicked in, cover story, just give them a bit, and then stick with it, So my cover story was, listen, mate, I've only been here 2 weeks. Correct. I've only been there 2 weeks. And I'm just a driver. Yeah, that was a bit of a bullshit, but, I'm just a driver, so I know nothing. So an hour later, they're trying to get more out of you. I just stuck with that. No, sorry, mate. No, driver, no nothing. So they threw me out in disgust and then dragged Billy in. And then Billy went through roughly the same. Now, unfortunately for Billy, when we first got captured, Billy had tried to speak a bit of Serbo-Croat. So they must have put 2 and 2 together and thought, Billy's the senior one, and the driver is Mr. Thicky. Let's just give him a bit of a hard time out there. So Billy was in there for an hour, came out. And then 10 minutes later, Billy got dragged back in again. I was expecting me to go in, but Billy went in, out. Billy got dragged in about 4 or 5 times for interrogation. I was left in the corridor to the pleasure of that guy that we laughed at, who took great pleasure in giving me a bit of a hard time. He had a little bit of a kick in. He had a bayonet, and he was sort of, threatening you. Stuff that you expect. When you get captured, you expect a bit of hassle. I didn't feel at the time that we were going to get killed. It's uncomfortable. It's a pain in the ass, but you accept it. Just get on with it, and away you go. And it was keeping him quiet because, he was giving me a bit of a hard time and stuff like that. So anyway, me and Billy finally got together. When they threw him out of his last one, we were actually fairly close together. And Billy said, they sort of leant over and went, "Fucking hell, mate, what did you tell him?" I went, "Sorry, mate, I just told him I'm the driver." And Billy looked at me and went, "Yeah, but I'm the driver." Snooze, you lose, mate. In the meantime, the two lads had realised that we'd gone up back at the meeting. Had realised that we'd been captured, so rang up one of the generals, General Smith, I think, in Sarajevo. General Smith, brilliant, fantastic attitude, no dramas. Just go in there and arrest the Serbian general. So they went into the meeting, arrested the Serbian general, explained the situation to him, said, "Right, you've got two options. You either get the two boys released or you're being taken back to Bihać." And the thought of a Serbian general going to Bihać, bearing in mind that these people have been at each other's throat for quite a long time, he absolutely pooped his pants. So he got on the sat phone. And about an hour and a half later, we got brought back, basically. And we were sort of walking back to the meeting, I suppose. They'd given us the weapons back and everything else. And that was it. And me and Billy looked at each other and thought, well, that was a bit surreal. Bit of a strange day, I suppose. But we kept it really low-key because the only people that knew about it were the other two people in the patrol, the general, the OC B Squadron, and maybe the Sergeant Major, and maybe one or two other people. We kept it really, really quiet, because it wasn't a drama. Okay, when you're in places like Bosnia and you do the stuff that we do, being shot at or being captured, you pretty much expect that. Because some of the stuff you're doing is really ballsy. You go to the front line, no body armor or no, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the respect of the frontline troops. And you turning up with your big fancy helmet and your body armor that they don't have, your street cred goes down the hill, So it's winning the hearts and minds of not only the people, but you've got to win the hearts and minds of the people, the warring factions themselves. Otherwise, they're not going to open up to you and talk about things. So, and that's how we operate. So being captured, being shot at is pretty, par for the course, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the kind of resistance to interrogation, obviously you're trained in that on selection, and I suppose them drills kick in. But I just love how kind of blasé and you're able to laugh in that situation. I think that sums up the British kind of military mentality, doesn't it, in a nutshell there, where you laugh in the face of adversity and the calmness. Because obviously you're still there, but probably an element in the back of your mind from your resistance to interrogation training that you could be killed, you could be executed. It's a very real possibility, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I suppose if you're going to get captured with someone, be captured with Billy Billingham, because you feed off each other. I'd just come back from Ireland, so, was pretty confident in how we go about our business. Billy's a confident individual anyway. So, top tip, if you get captured, make sure that you've got a decent bloke, because it does feed off each of you. When you're both together, all of a sudden you get a lot more confidence about you. When you get separated and you're on your lonesome, that's slightly different, if that makes sense. So when Billy was getting in there, getting interrogated, and I'm outside getting a bit of a hard time, it does play on your mind somewhat that, if I start laughing now, actually, he might stab me. So you start to take things a bit more serious, although, you just go along. But at no stage did I think these people were going to kill me, because you have to have a positive attitude. When you get captured and you're at your lowest of the low, you have to find anything within you to keep that morale going, if that makes sense, and that sense of belief that you're going to walk out of here. And at no stage did my mind think we're in trouble. For me, they obviously wanted to know who we were. They were obviously keen, I suppose. The Serbs were very anti-SAS because when you had Srebrenica, it was an SAS team down there that actually brought the NATO aircraft fire onto Serbian troops. So they weren't too keen on SAS personnel. And I think that they obviously suspected that we may be SAS purely because we didn't look like UN. But at no stage did we own up to it. There was nothing on us to say that we were SS troops or like that. But that I'm guessing that the interrogation was all about trying to get that out of us. And the reason I say that is I only got interrogated the once. Poor old Billy was in there quite a few times. So for them, when I was in there, it was just trying to, who are you? What unit are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I just kept referring back, to 2 weeks, mate. I haven't got a clue. These people don't tell me anything. I'm just a driver. I just collect the tea and the coffee in the morning. And they obviously got hacked off with that and threw me out. And then poor old Billy went through. But I would say a bit of a hard time with the interrogation because he got dragged in about 4 or 5 times, for 45 minutes, an hour each session. So I never had that. I was just thrown in the corner as Mr. Ticky. So my cover story worked perfectly, if that makes sense, because it kept...
It worked for you, Mick, not so much for Billy, though, eh?
Well, we had a good laugh about it walking back. But it's funny because we kept it really low key. Next day, crack on as normal, doing other dodgy stuff and that lot. Completely forgotten about. 1 minute you're captured, gone through a bit of a hard time. Next minute, have breakfast, get on with it. And that was the mentality. The Scorchers. It's just that, things happen, and you just bounce back and get on with it. And it's funny because I had a chat with my boys about it, and said, "Listen, guys, it wasn't a big drama." And they all looked at me and went, "Yeah, Dad, that is actually a bit of a drama, to be honest." But it's we're old school mentality. Just get on with it. And quite ironically, Billy, when he did a first couple of sessions with Who Dares Wins on TV, the interrogation thing came up. Escape and evasion, all that. And he made a statement on there, quite right as well, that he'd actually been through that process. Literally, the next day, he was getting phone calls from people that we were in Bosnia with, B Squadron members, who were saying, "Hold on, Billy, you've never been captured. That's a bit of a bullshit story." And he went, "Well, actually, yeah, we have. We just didn't make a drama out of it." And that's key, really, is... Too many people nowadays, they do make a bit of a drama. And military guys, we tend to laugh that off as just, what I mean? It is a bit of an issue, but it's not.
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, that, and I get where you're coming from sometimes. But again, I think it has the negative impact of people feeling that they're unable to kind of open up. Sometimes it's like a fine balance, isn't it? And I think we do. As veterans, we kind of do kind of crack on, and that's what's needed of us. I think it's after for a lot of guys that they still feel that they have to keep cracking on when things get to a point where they need to reach out. I make no secret about it. I say it all the time. My main goal on this podcast is to raise that awareness about mental health. And for too long, soldiers kind of just crack on until a point where they think, I can't, and then they don't talk about it. But you know where I'm coming from with that one, don't you, Mick?
I'll tell you what, mate, and I find this quite hard. I've always poo-pooed mental health in the military, sign of weakness, forever. Until a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that, I was over in Northern Ireland and I was teaching surveillance awareness to Royal Engineers who were on a civil CP course. And a really nice lad called me over and said, "Mick, can you come over to Ireland and run the 2-day surveillance awareness part of the course? Purely because you've got experience." And for me, it was fantastic. Because we're in Northern Ireland, I thought, perfect. For the exercise, let's go and walk round the Ardoyne, as you do. Or when we do the mobile exercise, let's go and drive round West Belfast. And then I'll go and stop in the Ballymurphy and go shopping. And force the team to work in environments that they're not used to, because it's still out of bounds at the moment. Military still not allowed there. And the 2 lads that I had with me that were being the enemy, as such, were both from Northern Ireland, both from Belfast, and they were asking me where to go. And I looked at them and thought, hold on, you're from Belfast. And they went, "Mick, we don't come over this side ever." So and it was a really great 2 days because putting the boys under a bit of pressure. Bearing in mind that they did fantastically well, because when I came out of the shop in Ballymurphy, and the day before we kept preaching on to them about having a reason for being there. You've got to have a reason for being there, otherwise you just get blown, or someone will pick you out as not being. And I came out the shop, and one of the guys, and I didn't know this, but had actually taken his girlfriend with him. So a boy and a girl walking in the shop while I was in there. Because I knew him, I obviously saw him, but I wouldn't have given them a blind bit of notice if that meant reason for being there, man or woman, shopping. Perfect. As I walked out the shop, another lad had taken his dog out, and I just caught it and caught in my eye. And the only reason I caught it was because I knew the guy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given him a second glance. But he was walking his dog. Reason for being there, walking your dog. Perfect. So they actually took on board everything we did, and it was good because there was a bit of an edge to the training. Anyway, I then flew back. The next day I flew back. Wednesday I flew back to the UK. Woke up in Hereford on Thursday morning, 3:00 in the morning. For some reason, I just had the urge to hang myself. Financial worries, other worries, and the whole thing just overnight, it just completely changed. We're having therapy sessions at the moment. The amount of people I've spoken to since that incident, because I have no idea where these demons came from. I don't think it was from a recall from Northern Ireland, because we had a great tour in Northern Ireland, so I don't think it was that. Yes, we are struggling to get work because of the stuff that we do. We are quite niche, and we are in an environment really that really don't take security that serious. We do active shooter, as we saw in Manchester. We do active shooters training. We do knife rampage, all this type of stuff, where there's no appetite in the UK. So people like me, the older, bolder type trainers who have got massive amount of experience, for me, and I just woke up and just thought, actually, I think we're past our sell-by date. Nobody's interested in what we do, and I just felt completely worthless and everything else. And for me, the easy option would have been, solid, just hang yourself. So I just woke up and said my goodbyes to people, and that was it. Ropes are up, and away we go. And thankfully, someone had picked up on the message, and the police turned up. Next minute, two of my boys turned up. My daughter turned up. Loads of phone calls from people. And I think actually talking to people, even strangers, to be honest, was a release, because I live out here in rural Herefordshire with 2 French bulldogs. My nearest neighbour is 400 metres down the road, so that, I don't think that helped, because there's no outlet. Trying to get a conversation out of these two is nigh on impossible.
I can hear them gobbing off, though. No, it is, and that's how quickly, though, things can turn. Not just for veterans, for men, for women. Very, very quickly. I think men are more susceptible. There's a big, obviously, epidemic, if you want of a better word, of men of certain ages, for all number of reasons, and it is. And I've been quite vocal. Like, I've preached the talking and stuff, and I kind of put a post out the other day. I've got some big changes coming up that I'm about to announce in the next couple of weeks with my life. They're nothing major as such, but obviously they've had an effect to me. And in the last 10 days, I've had 2 anxiety attacks. I've never had anxiety in my life. I wouldn't put me down as someone that has that, but I woke up similar to you. One was before I went to bed. I had a full-on anxiety attack. I thought I was having a heart attack, Mick. I'm not going to lie to you. I was shaking. I was sweating. My chest was tight, but I couldn't breathe. Every time the more I thought about it, the worse it got. And then I had another one at 4:00 the other morning, and I had to get up, and I went out for about probably 2.5 hours walking and plodding and running around the streets of my village to try and shake it off. Thankfully, I haven't had another one, but again, a bit like yourself with stuff like that. I'm aware of the mental health stuff, but the anxiety and panic attacks, I've never really thought, well, surely they're not that bad. I can assure anyone that's never had one, they are absolutely horrendous. And that's how quickly things get on top of you, isn't it?
It is, and a massive thanks really to people like the SAS Association who do a lot behind the scenes. They were straight on the case. There's a lad called Ian Rivers, who actually Ian Rivers was he was one of the other two people in that patrol who helped get us freed, and he was on the phone straight away, invited us down there, having a cup of coffee. Special Forces Club, getting involved, people that I've never met before, chatting away, and just, all these people coming out the woodwork really, and helping, talking, and because it was completely new for me. Like I say, I've always poo-pooed mental health as, sign of weakness. And a lot of that is just because of the way we are. We tend to just get on with it. We're not, not an organisation. We're not people that we tend to, I'm suffering a bit here. We tend to just keep it to ourselves. But unfortunately for me, it all came out on this morning, and scarily, the next day when you're trying to configure why you did that, and I just thought, flipping hell, that would have been a real gutless thing to do, to hang yourself, knowing that you got 4 kids. These 2 dogs, one of our dogs is a bit of a problem child, and doesn't like people mostly. So it would have been a nightmare for anyone, like, sort of, turning up and finding that you hanged yourself. So I had guilt the next day, thinking back of, what could have happened. And so then the therapy kicks in, and then I did my first shrink session last week, which was quite emotional. Trying to get things out, and your words. The policewoman that first turned up, I bawled my eyes out, talking to a policewoman, trying to get your head around what the hell was I thinking? What's happening here? Like, yeah, it's quite a difficult time. But as you do, life goes on. So now trying to help other people, I suppose. Not so much on the mental side of it. There are good people out there like yourself who know much better than what I do. I just suffer for it, and people help me. And if people can understand that, even SAS guys suffer as well. That it can happen to anyone. Yeah, it's just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that, Mick. I was totally unaware that you'd been struggling, but look, thank you for speaking about it. I mean, it's not easy, and especially speaking publicly about it. But again, I want to thank you for that, because that is exactly what the point I'm trying to get across by having you guys on, is that, quite frankly, if you can talk about it, there are these robust sort of fighting men from the best special forces on the planet, and they can open up about their mental health and their feelings. I'm hoping that gets the message out there that it's not a sign of weakness, and that anyone can come forward. They can talk to a friend, talk to a stranger. My door's always open. My phone's always on. If anyone needs to talk, I'm happy to chat to them. I'll try not to bore them to tears if I do talk to them, but I will do my best. But no, thank you for that, Mick, and I appreciate it. And I hope the therapy is helping, and you're getting better with it. All right, buddy.
The therapy is helping massively, and it's the same as people now. Mick, how are you getting on? And just little things like that really do help. People just checking up on you, and just making it's good. And these podcasts are great as well. Because we did one last week. I've got another one on Thursday down in Poole, with an SBS guy, Shaky Bone. Which would be interesting, and it's good because as I say, it's good to talk. And like I say, that experience, I've never had that ever. Even when you're captured, even when you're at your lowest edge in the military, when you're getting mortared and on a start line and you can't go anywhere in the Falklands, never once did you have any negative feelings about it. Like, it's. Basically, you get your head down because it's going to be the last chance you've got before you start the attacks of getting your head down. So even though you're getting mortared, it's just having that positive. If it hits you, yeah, fine. But I'm laid down. I'm behind a bit of a rock. I'm freezing my bollocks off. Let's just get on with it, like, and try and catch up with a few Z's, like, And you can hear people, who were actually getting fragged with the mortar shells and screaming out and stuff like that, but just get on with it, like.
That's the thing. You do get on with it, and because you're busy throughout your career, like, and obviously you've been a very busy individual throughout your career in the SAS, and you've done some amazing things, but you've kind of been non-stop to a point. And I think what happens is people kind of slow down, and I liken it to, like, I've never struggled in the past. Like, been to fires throughout my career in the fire service where we've pulled casualties out of burning buildings. Some sadly that never survived, and then we've gone back to the station at 3 o'clock in the morning. Then I've gone back to sleep, you know, and it never phased me. I had the best analogy, and I want to share this because I think it's the best way for someone with a brain like mine with ADHD. I don't learn the normal way, and sometimes I need things explaining in a different way. And I went to see a doctor the other day when I had this panic attack just to check that it wasn't my heart, and he worded it. I told him about my whole life from start to finish, what I've done over the years, which I don't think's massive compared to a lot of people, but it will be more than some. It's just the way it goes. And the way he worded it was, he says, imagine this office. He says, I've got everything where I want it. Everything's laid out how I want it. He says, imagine if people bring boxes of crap in, just rubbish and boxes, and start putting. He says, well, for a bit of the time, I can put a bit under the table and it's out the way. And then he says, oh, I can put a bit behind that chair. He says, eventually, you're going to have to work out, remove some stuff that you like. So I'm going to have to move a chair out that I like to put some more crap. And eventually your room's full of crap. And he says, that's your brain. He says, your brain is like that. You need to offload some of the stuff that you've got going on there to make room for new stuff and happiness, So I think that's the best analogy I've ever had it explained to me. Does that resonate with you, Mick?
Yeah, it does. The reason I struggle slightly with that type of thing is I spent 20 years in corporate security, looking after lots of people, looking after the business and everything else in it. So when I came back 3 years ago now, back to UK, try and write a book, but also set this thing up about doing personal safety situation awareness, trying to look after it. So for me, even though we're 66, don't go to sleep easy because all I'm thinking about is how can we help people? When that incident happened, instantly we put out a post, and all we did was we just regurgitated, whatever they called it, a post that we did 12 months ago when also the Jewish community were under attack from a lot of people. And we said, listen, if you're a Jewish community and you're feeling vulnerable, give me a shout, and free of charge, we will come down there and we will help you, because that's what we do. So we did a post the other day. Cheltenham Synagogue have asked us for help, so we're going to have a chat with them on Monday about going down there and doing a security assessment of the synagogue itself, and just doing a bit of training with all the people there, how to spot potential red flags and this, that, and the other. And if all the synagogues in the whole of the UK get in touch, and for me, let's keep our people safe. I don't want to be a millionaire. For me, let's keep people safe, because unfortunately we're in a society at the moment that has just gone banzai, and not helped obviously by certain individuals, i.e. in government, that are not helping it. There's a protest today in London. They could quite easily have banned that quite easily, and they're not. And all it's going to do is it's going to cause division. So I tend to favour the people that are vulnerable. There's Kurdish refugee females, not refugees, but vulnerable people in London. They've been in touch. We're going to go down there free of charge and help them, because they're vulnerable people. And you tend to find that it's the vulnerable people that can't afford security assistance, so end up not getting any assistance at all. So we're trying to change that narrative. And if you're a vulnerable group, then we're coming to help you, if that makes sense.
Well, that's absolutely amazing, Mick, and a very, very worthy cause as well. And the fact that you're doing it just off your back for free makes it even more kind of inspiring, if you like. It's good that there's people like you in the world that want to do that sort of stuff and help people. And I think what you touched on there, I think more so in the current world we live in, with the situational awareness, because people are that buried their heads in their phone. I see all the time. Now, I don't know. I've done a surveillance course. I did some surveillance, nothing like what you would have done in the military, a civilian's, well, it was run by a military guy, but a civilian surveillance course. because I was in that industry. But the situational awareness bit, I think it's very, very important. You know, where you position yourself on a bus, where you position yourself in a pub. I still do that now instinctively, so I can see the whole room. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being that way or overly cautious, because any of these attacks, as we've just seen, knife attacks, gun attacks, they can happen anywhere, anytime. No one's expecting it, because it just seems like, that's not going to happen in my village. That's not going to happen in my. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, is there, Mick?
No, you're right. It's funny because when we came back, we had a look at the security industry, and I'm quite vocal against it, really. And the reason being is some of the standards are pretty poor, to be quite frank. I understand why the SAA was brought in, because they did need to regulate it and do something, but they've gone full circle now. And, you know, there's government agencies working with the SIA or SIA approved individuals who are giving out SIA licenses like confetti to refugees, and it's all to do with trying to get the refugees working. So instead of delivering food, where else can we put them? I know. Let's put them as security guards guarding Wembley. Well, call me old-fashioned. Some of these people can't speak the language. They're not doing a proper course. It's a token effort. They've brought in, you know, Martin's Law is supposed to be coming in. That'll fail miserably. And I hate to say that, purely because for that to work, everybody has got to be in sync. If you've got people there that can't speak the language and as token effort course, and they're there guarding, then they're not going to protect a venue at all. Especially if it's the same people who are attacking it than are protecting the places supposedly protecting it. So I'm really anti standards. So when I looked at the surveillance awareness on the CP course, that should really be that should never be taught by people who've never done a surveillance course. That's got to be taught by people. Yes, it's part of the CP course, but you can't just have CP people teaching surveillance awareness. You know, you've got to bring someone in who knows about surveillance. I managed to get a 2-day package, sort it all out, and it was all based on Northern Ireland, the course that we ran over there. And the first morning of the course is all about situational awareness, because if you haven't got situational awareness, you are not going to be surveillance awareness. You're not going to spot the surveillance, because you need that basic fundamentals of situational awareness first and foremost. And it's the same as when we're going to do I'm going to make a 2-day package of active shooter, or marauding terrorist attack, as the police call it, stroke knife rampage. And we're going to make it a 2-day course. And again, the first fundamentals are situational awareness. Because when we teach, and we've taught active shooter all around the world, China, America, the only place we have never taught it here in the UK. And that tells a story that we really don't take it serious enough. Whereas other, you know, I was in Monaco at the time when the big attacks happened in Paris and all over Europe. So that was our, right, listen, let's go. So Switzerland, Holland, Monaco, even in Monaco. And bizarrely, the staff that we taught active shooter in Monaco poo-pooed it initially. You know, nothing ever happens. You know, the worst that happens in Monaco is people spill their pink champagne on their shoes, and that becomes a major drama. However, you have the Nice attack. Now, all the people that generally work in Monaco tend to live in Nice, which is 20-minute train drive down the road, basically. So you have that massive attack down there that killed 87 people on Bastille Day, when that lunatic jumped in a truck and decided to drive over everybody. But because people had been through the active shooter, you know, some of our people knew what their options were like, you know, and you're right. People nowadays, you just got no idea when it's going to happen, like, you know, so the fundamentals is always situational awareness. But what we're trying to do is just trying to improve them standards, which is why we're quite vocal on LinkedIn. It's not taking a piss. It's not being derogative. It's making people realise that they need to get their shit together and change it. Because, you know, when you get attacks in Manchester like we've just had, and bear in mind that it all stems from the attack in Manchester, 12 years ago, and nothing's changed. So we have another attack, nothing Nothing ever changes in this country unless people are willing to stand up and start flipping, banging the door. It's too easy to sit on your hands and do nothing.
Yeah, I think what happens, it happens every time you have one of these attacks. People then start to sort of take note, and then it doesn't last. It kind of wears off, sort of complacency sort of sets in again, and that's what we're seeing. And it's good again, Mick, that you're getting out there, you're spreading that word, and hopefully it sinks in. I really do hope, because again, the world that we live in now with what's happening, and you see it all the time. I think people need to be a bit more switched on, get their head out of the phones, get their heads in the moment, in the present, and just be a bit more aware. So no, I think it's brilliant what you're doing with that, mate. And is that what you kind of like your main focus at the minute is concentrating on that along with your rural security stuff as well? Yeah.
Yeah, we've been asked to go out to South Africa in February to teach a sort of a small heat course, I suppose. We call it a psychological heat course because it's for scientists who don't want to run around doing all the stuff at normal heat. So we've got them for 2 days. We're just going to go through classroom stuff and get the mind right. I've got an American guy coming over here next week who's off to Ukraine. So he's done all the fitness training, blah, blah, blah. God knows why he's going to Ukraine, but he is. So we're going to spend 2 days getting that mindset right. If we can get the mindset right for him, at least it gives him a chance because it's better than nothing. 2 days trying to get someone's mindset right to go into a hostile environment is not a lot, but it's better than nothing, if that makes sense. So yeah, just trying to help people make sure that they're a bit more prepared is probably the right word.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love what you're doing, Mick. I think it's brilliant. Can you touch on your book? Is that a sore topic at the minute? Is it? Well, how's that panning out?
Yeah, tell you what's bizarre, mate. So the original author, she passed away, Nicole Johnson. She passed away. So it put the book back about 18 months, I suppose, because we were just starting the final chapter when she passed away. So I did a talk. I did 3 talks, one in Bury, one over in Stockton-upon-Tees, and then back over to Workington. And they were basically pubs, clubs, predominantly military people. Because when we do a stand-up talk about your career, the one people you can't bullshit are military people.
Yeah, true. They'll know.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're in Stockton-upon-Tees, there was 15 lads who were from 4 Para having a few drinks. So they keep you on the straight and narrow. There was a guy at the very back who I was in 14 Imp with over in Northern Ireland, and actually was on the 2-year London attachment with me. So you can't bullshit there. And it's great. I love military humour because you get a lot of feedback, which is great. And much better than talking to civvies, because a lot of civvies don't understand the terminology. So we've been invited down to Deal, the Royal Marines, in February. We're doing a talk up at Liverpool Football Club at the November, heading to Hull at the end of this month to give a talk. So we're slowly getting into that. But the book side of it, so when we were at Bury, a author, reporter, who'd written Victoria Wood's book, autobiography, called Neil Broadhurst. Really, really lovely chap. Anyway, he got older. He said, Mick, I understand about your book. So he got older. I sent all the stuff to him. On the 2nd of September, he sent a real bizarre text. And he said, Mick, due to conflict of interest, I can't now do the book, but I'm going to pass it over to a good friend of mine called Tony, based over in Manchester. I'm going to pass it to him. Great bloke, blah, blah. And he is. Tony's actually really going through the book at the moment. Bizarrely, so Neil Broadhurst on the 2nd committed suicide. Never, no read back, this text message. And I knew nothing about it until Tony sent me a bit about the Bury Times, and it was an obituary about, the Neil committing suicide, or dying unexpectedly, if that makes sense. So that's 2 people now that have worked on the. I'll tell you, it's a bit of a jinx who have sort of passed away, So yeah, it's sad. really sad, and that knocks you back as well, because you just think you have that guilt complex. You know, he sent me a text, but there was nothing on there to indicate, you know, he was over in Norfolk having a bit of time off, like, you know, so there was no indication there. And I think what sold it to me, really, that he was on another project, so he couldn't, but it was his way of saying, Mick, I can't do the book, I'm going to commit suicide now, let me hand it over to this other lad, like, you know, but in was obviously what he was thinking, and he passed over. So Tony's working on the book at the moment. We're hoping to get it finished by the end of the year. It's all about resilience. It's not a Bravo 20 type book. It's about resilience. It's about the family person. So when you read it, it's not Mick Hawkes as a hero. Don't come across that way at all. It's all about, you know, when we hit a bit of a brick wall in life, how do we get round it? You know, Lincoln City turned me round. Okay, I'll join the army. Snapping your ankle, parachute regiment. Oh, okay, I'll be a commando. You know, it's just, you know, hitting these things and how you just get around it. How about always having a plan B? Fingers crossed, because this has been a 3-year project ever since I got back from the Netherlands in 2022. Hopefully now with Tony on board, we can get this done and dusted and finished and published, really, by December. It's crossed.
No, well, I'll keep an eye out for it, Mick. I hope you do get it finished, and I'll look forward to reading it. I will get myself a copy. I'll help you kind of get the word out there as well. Not that you probably need my help, but all help. It kind of helps spread it. And like I said it a million times, that the government's not willing to help veterans, so that's we've got to help each other. Veterans have got to stick together. So whatever it is you need help sharing, Mick, more than happy to oblige and help share. And hopefully we can get to meet up and have a beer in the future. I'd really like that, and I'd really like to sit down and chat with you in a studio environment in the future and have a good podcast. But
yeah, to be honest, I'm more than happy to come down, because it's a lot easier in the studio. And I saw one you did with the Irish lad.
Yeah, Rob Davidson. Yeah.
The thing that I'm hacked off about, you were drinking wine. Hold on, what?
That was beer. It was beer. It weren't wine.
I'll come down. I'll drink the wine. Just a lot of people might come up and they say, "What's the rugby shirt Mick's wearing?" It's a Leicester Tiger shirt from way back in the day. I know we wear green, red, and white at the moment, but it's an old Leicester Tiger shirt from many years ago.
No. Well, fair. Well, you'll have answered that question. That will get questioned. But thank you. Like I say, moving forward, when I announce what's happening with the podcast in the future, there's going to be studios. There's going to be a lot more stuff, and hopefully, I'll talk to you about something that you might be interested in off air in a second. But look, Mick, always a pleasure chatting to you. You have a place anytime you want to talk about anything new you've got coming out. You're always welcome on my podcast, buddy. And I'm glad that you've come out of the dark place and you've took steps to fix it. And I wish you all the best for the future, buddy.
Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Hit the ground, no sound but the wind jumped out the sky where the real work begins. Iraq heat, cold steel on the front line, security tight, walking edge of a landmine. Somali seas, deck slick with the salt, eyes sharp, never blink, never halt. Surveillance in the mist, eyes on the prize. UK streets to foreign skies, from fire calls to bare knuckle rings, still fighting demons that memory brings. Oh, Kevin, tune in now, feel the truth get louder. This is the old paratrooper, no powder, no script, no mask, no lies, just facts. Mental health raw in boots or slacks, ADHD to the PTS pain. We're breaking silence, not playing games. Old paratrooper podcast, stay locked in. Stories from the edge where the healing begins. Not a saint, just a voice for the ones who never had a fucking choice. From the wire to the ward, from smoke to the dark, every scar on the soul is a battle mark. Memories haunting, can't shake the past, but together we fight, we stand steadfast. Loud engines roar, feel the thunder. Every story shed, we tear asunder.